Good evening and welcome to tonight's show from DJNTV, Disc Jockey News TV. Tonight's show is brought to you by Electra Voice, DJ Event Planner, DJ Trivia, Odyssey Innovative Designs and Cases, NLFX Professional, Promo Only, and the DJNTV Insiders.
This next DJ knows just how to grab his audience and take them on a sonic journey. He's a true veteran, professional, and producer. As a co-host and contributor on the Passionate DJ podcast, Trip and his team help new to the scene and old school DJs overcome challenges and learn something new about the craft by sharing experiences, insight, and thought-provoking conversations. Today, we're chatting with Trip as he takes us through his journey and wisdom that can only be found through experience. Trip, thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kilma. It's a pleasure to be on.
Well, for people that might not know of you and all the amazing things that you're doing, I learned about you through the Passionate DJ with David Michael. Yeah. So let's back everything up. Let's talk about your history of music, how you got into it, and what that journey looked like. Yeah.
Well, I guess I could start with the cliche. I started off as a musical protege at birth. No. But no, the most up-to-date version is I was kind of at a crossroads of life, like in my late teens, early 20s. And a lot of things were like in transition. I was like into a bunch of different kinds of music. We're talking the 90s. So we're talking like, everything from grunge music to gangster rap and stuff like that. But I was with a bunch of friends and they happened to say, hey, we're going to a party. Do you want to go with us? And my idea of a party and their idea of a party were two different things, apparently, because we ended up at, some dirty warehouse rave. And from that point, I was hooked. So, prior to that, I kind of played around with like, spliced RCA cords and stuff and, hook up multiple like CD players and record and turntables and stuff like that. And then I wasn't really mixing per se, but it was more like, I'm splicing a bunch of wires and then like I would play a song and then like do drop samples and, then create like little mixtapes with like mixes or like little drops of other songs in songs. And what I found is like Miami type music. So like think you're like Two Live Crew and your Luke and Quad City DJs, stuff like that. All of that really worked well for that, just tinkering. But it wasn't like really DJing. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just playing around with sounds. But so after a couple of years of hanging out with those rave scene friends and stuff, I ended up having like this house party where a buddy of mine had bought a bunch of DJ equipment and records and set it all up at the house. And he was playing around. And then, when the party's over, he was like, man, I don't feel like picking all this stuff up and packing it up. And he's like, can I leave it here? And I said, well, sure. So next thing I know, he left it there for like a month. And so that's how I ended up actually falling in love with like DJing, because then like I've actually got real equipment sitting there. And, this is before the days of YouTube and all of that kind of stuff, so it was like the only way you're going to figure it out is to like really get in there and like play with it. So yeah, that's how I knew when I was going to be a DJ.
Yeah, because that's kind of an expensive thing to start up and you're like, will I like this? Won't I like this?
Right.
$1,000 later.
Exactly. But, and all he had was house records at the time. So that's, and we were all into like Bad Boy Bill and Richard Humpty Vision, if you remember Humpty and the Richard Humpty Vision. But, so I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I was playing around with, and I would play their CDs and then try to match up what they were doing in their CDs with the records that this guy had, and try to just, that's how I figured it out, is listening to this like professionally mixed studio mix or whatever, and then playing around on a couple of belt driven tables with a Gemini mixer, not even a Gemini. I think it was like that old school Newmark with like the LEDs that went out into an arc. Like, I don't even, what was that? The 1001X or something like that. But, so that's how I got into all of that. But then, so once I got my own equipment, then I started buying my own records. And so I went from house to like booty house for a little bit, and, or ghetto tech or whatever you wanted to call it back then, or whatever they call it now. G house, I think, is the correct term now. But, so then from there, then I found progressive house, which I really liked that because it had like, I don't know, like a more futuristic, kind of more mellow, not quite as boom, 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 that's, and Chicago house and all of that stuff. Like it all had its own flavor, but for whatever reason, progressive house like kind of caught me, but then it was like a gateway into trance. So trance is where I really built my name, like over 99, 2000, 2001, even into 2002 a little bit. I was like one of maybe half a dozen DJs all throughout Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana that was playing it. And that's just, that happened to be the dubstep of my time. Yeah. And that's what made me popular, so we were all, those of us that were playing it, we were headlining all the shows or doing direct support for all the shows and stuff like that. But Rave Act happened in 2003. That kind of screwed a bunch of things for a lot of people. So at that point, I had to like kind of play around and, find other sounds that suited me if I wanted to keep playing out and stuff like that. And so now I'm kind of like a jack of all trades. I really love drum and bass, and I really love techno. So those are the two genres that I really focus on the most. But I've had a little bit of success with like glitch hop, break beats, stuff like that. But techno and drum and bass are really where I keep coming back to.
Yeah, I feel you on that one.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I'm speaking, we're kindred spirits here on that note, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, as the years went on, you got involved with the Passionate DJ podcast. I'm super curious because you guys have had so many conversations, like pretty controversial ones, really interesting. What are maybe some of the episodes that really stand out to you, and why?
Oh man, that's hard. That's a really hard one. It's really hard because we've almost got 200 episodes under our belt. So
just pick one.
Right. I would say one that always comes back to me is the Egyptian Lover.
Okay.
So anybody who's not hip to him, he's a old school West Coast turntablist pioneer. He predates like gangster rap, NWA, all of that stuff. So like this guy, he mixes wax, scratches wax, and then also incorporates an 808 into his sets. And I mean, this guy is amazing. Like, I mean, he's got to be in his 50s now, maybe even 60s. But I mean, he is probably 50s. But I mean, he's just still tearing it up. And so when he came to Dayton, Tony from Three Dimensional, who is also on the podcast with us, he threw a show, brought Egyptian Lover, and then he agreed to do an interview with us on the podcast. And it was just amazing that he's telling us all of these stories about seeing like the young Dr. Dre and Eazy-E and DOC, like all these guys that before NWA was a thing, before Death Row was a thing, before any of that, or Ruthless Records, before any of that was a thing. All these guys crossed paths and hung out together, and hung out in the same clubs and were DJing and stuff. So as he's telling us all of this, and then we get on the subject of Dayton. So for those of you guys that don't follow the show, our podcast is based in Dayton, Ohio, here in the States. And it's pretty crazy because Dayton, Ohio has such a rich music history, especially in the funk genre. So this guy who, had his comeuppance, scratching funk records in the 80s. And he's all like, that like all of these artists are still alive and living in your city and still doing stuff. He was all like, where's your documentary? And like, he just goes on this like 10-minute rant about how great our city is and the rich history that we have. And then, it gives me chills even just thinking about it. But he says, you're walking on platinum dirt and you don't even know it. And we're like, it's just one of those chilling moments where you're like, because like the room went like literally silent. If you listen to that spot in the podcast, I actually shortened the awkward silence because it was so long, because all of us, our jaws are just on the floor. So I like snipped a couple extra seconds out of it. So there's still dramatic pause there, but it was actually longer than it was. But I would say DJ Craze was another good one in terms of the interviews. The hardest part about that one as a sound guy is that the original recording did not take. So the only thing we had when we hung up the phone with him was an iPad recording from the other side of the room. So there was a lot of creative compression and noise canceling and all kinds of stuff that I had to do to that one just to get it to a salvageable point. But that dude was a great guest. He's super chill. I've had the honor of doing direct support for him, and it's just, he was so open about everything from like, the people that he knows and the type of lifestyle, being on the road and stuff like that. And then, hashtag real DJs and how that became a thing and like how it's evolved and people's interpretations. So he's just a really insightful dude. And he was a pleasure to talk to. But the show itself, like pick threes, software reviews, hardware reviews, interviews with all kinds of people. Like we've interviewed you a couple of times, Disco Donnie, Second Nature, just a lot of people who are really like candid about, their experiences as DJs. And my favorite part about the show, if I had to hone in on any one thing, like from a topic thing, it's when we get to like debate or kind of work out philosophy, like, because there's so much how or why behind the what. And it's one thing to have, musicians and DJs that get out there and they just play the music or do how-to videos and stuff like that. But it's another thing to really like dig into it and talk to people and have that connection and be like, why are you doing it this way? Or how can we make things better? Or, how did you do this? And here's how I did it, and be able to share those experiences, because then you're actually creating a community there. So it's definitely something that like, I don't know, for us to be able to work that kind of stuff out on the air and to have been doing it for almost 200 episodes, like you would think we would run out of things to talk about.
I love how everybody on the episode can, have differing opinions and experiences, and everyone still gets along, and it creates so many different interesting conversations. I really appreciate Dave's careful wording. He's so thoughtful.
Whereas you got a loose cannon like me sometimes.
Which
like,
is also
this, I don't know.
Which is also so fantastic, though. Like what you're talking about, the candidness and having these artists really speak out. I wonder why some artists are maybe a little bit more comfortable doing that than others. I know for me, I probably used to be more candid than I am now. Now I feel like, hold back some things. But
But it seems like podcasts are just such a phenomenal thing right now. People are constantly talking about this new podcast that they're listening to and how it's inspired them. What's your take on that? Why do you think podcasts are so popular right now?
So my very unscientific opinion, and from my own experience, it's a time management thing. So like, if you are a parent, or if you've got a full-time career, or if you've got any number of things that just are constantly demanding your time, podcasts and audiobooks are two solid ways that you can still consume information, expand your horizons, read without reading, that sort of thing, and get, differing opinions. So like, for example, for my full-time career, I work in IT. So it's very easy for me to throw on a set of headphones, put on a podcast or an audiobook, and be able to like consume that information while I'm like coding or jutting out emails, or, whatever it is that I'm doing throughout a day. So I feel like between that from the consumer end, and then on the other side of it, it's kind of like that same like DIY YouTube culture, where it's like, this is an easy way for a lot of people to get their creative outlet. So once you put something out there, you get people who are interested in it, who agree with you, who like what you're putting out there, or even, your small collection of haters that are going to, absolutely hate everything that you put out there. Right. But either way, it becomes a snowball effect, and, you get a small community going, and then it becomes that symbiotic kind of, relationship between you and other people. And then it becomes more of an exchange of ideas. And I think that's something that we all crave, is that connection.
Yes. Yeah. I love what you said about people just being so busy and it being easy to consume this content in the audio sense. I know I was listening to a podcast when the woman of the podcast was talking about how when you can't create, that's when you can learn, right? So yeah, you're in the car, or for me, it's like doing my makeup or cleaning. I'm listening to podcasts.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So you have been in the industry for a really long time, not to make you sound old.
No, that's okay. I
am. So with all these different experiences, can you maybe share a story about an accomplishment that made you feel really proud in your career, and why?
That's a hard one, because like, I've done, so like, just to throw it out there, like, I'm no superstar. I haven't like, opened up for an arena full of people. I'm not like, some super well-known thing, but like, so rather than a single accomplishment, I think for me, what I'm most proud of is like the everything that I've done as a whole. I'm extremely thankful for everything that I've been able to do and all of the people that helped me get me there. I have literally been playing since 98, 99. So in that amount of time, I've played hundreds of gigs. I've opened up for a laundry list of, top name DJs as direct support, or followed right after them, played a bunch of huge shows like that. I've been blessed enough that people have actually liked my music and have bought it. I've actually had it released on labels, and so people have bought some stuff from me. And I had one of my drum and bass releases actually made it into like the top 50 of the Beatport, the drum and bass chart. I was like, how did that happen? Like, so I've just and I've had some success with like some remix contests and things like that. So I think out of everything, it's just been like the culmination of everything. And early on in my career, I was able to not work a real job. So, I toured around all over the Midwest and some around the Southeast and stuff like that, and was able to like make a living, as a 20 something off of DJing. And, maybe picking up some waiting tables or, something, when times were a little slow just to make ends meet. But, by and large, that was a really good experience. But, as I'm in my 40s now, it's one of those things where like, I'm really proud of the life that I've built. And I'm really glad that, I have the career that I have, because now I'm not dependent on music as a way, as my means to an end. It's something that I can continue to pursue and do because I truly love it, and I truly love the community, and I really love everything about it. So, I've got that freedom to be able to still connect and interact and still build on it and do things to continue to add to my accomplishments. So I think that's my whole thing. Like, cause I can look back and I can point at any one given thing and I could be like, yeah, that was super cool. But, for me, like when I look back, it's more about everything,
Oh, I love that answer. You never know what you're going to get when you ask questions like that, right? You think like, oh, are they going to talk about this like super impactful one story? And then it's like,
right.
Grateful for fucking everything. I love that.
Yeah.
And
I mean, just in the last few years, I've been able to like open up for Paul Oakenfold, DJ Craze, Stanton Warriors. I'm opening for DJ Icy here in a couple weeks. Like, so it's like, I mean, I could point at any of these things and be like, yeah, that was cool, or that is going to be cool. But like, and it's not that like I minimize any of those things, but when I look back, as a 40 something now, about everything that I've been able to do, like, throwing parties and, just the relationships that, for example, I'm going to Phoenix for work here in a couple of days, actually, and I'll be there for a week. But because of my rave career and, the connections that I have in the rave scene, I've actually got a bunch of friends in Phoenix. So like when I land there, I'm going to go to their house with a thumb drive, and maybe even like we're trying to like work out something with a club. So I'll be there for work and I'll get to play. So, right. So
business or pleasure, both.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the whole thing for me. It really is. It's just a culmination of everything.
And I love how, I love the gratitude that you have for your team. Yeah. Like, crew, I feel like it's so important. How do you feel the crew people have had an impact on your career and your quality of life?
Define crew, because there's a lot of levels to crew, right? Like, I mean, first and foremost is family. And, for me, like, so for me, period, my immediate family here in the house, so my wife is super supportive. She knows I'm not like out getting drunk or getting all drugged up or, chasing skirts or anything like that. She really, truly knows what all of this stuff means to me. And she knows what the community means to me and the relationships that I have. And she gets it. So, she is super supportive of all of this. So, it to me, you can never truly put, a price tag or, identify any, quantifiable value to a spouse or a significant other who gets it and supports you. Because when you take that creative outlet away from people like us, then we're not a whole lot of fun to be around. So,
It's
and
true.
then, I've got, I have 4 children, one that we lost. But so of the 4 children that I have, all of them have played some part in my inspiration, so, my smallest, Ellie, she is always in here. I've got one of these micro cords with like the super little tiny keys, so that is hers, so she can come in here with her little fingers. My oldest two daughters, they they have gone to gigs with us and when it's been appropriate, of course, but and stuff like that. And so they grew up knowing dad as a DJ. The daughter that we lost, that was a huge time of inspiration for me, where I was able to like pour out a lot of emotion into writing some tracks, and some of those were released. So that was that was pretty cathartic for me. So having that core group of family is huge. But then when you get into like actual people, then like that are rave related, here come the shout outs. So right.
Hey.
So like for me, it was In the Groove Productions. Jason Brooks, he's like a brother to me in more ways than one. His entire family, actually, like his mom and dad let me live in their attic for a couple of months while I was like apartment shopping when I had to move for work and stuff like that. So, super, and his mom actually DJs too. So, it was like a really, that is family to me in more ways than one. And we built an entire like, reputation. We were notorious for throwing raves on party boats on the Ohio River and stuff. Like, yeah, we tore some shit up, right? So then of course there's Three Dimensional. Tony is my homie, like, period. And as Three Dimensional, I'm incredibly honored to be part of the Three Dimensional crew as one of their artists, because that has opened up so many doors. Tony does like nothing but top-notch work up here. So anytime he asks me, I know that he's not asking me to do something because I'm just his homie. If that was the case, then he would have me on every other show, right? But no, he truly waits until there's like the right show with the right headliner, and where he feels that my skill set and the things that I play match up with the event itself. And so, I really respect Tony for the care that he takes when he's creating shows. And he's shown me so much in like the last 10 years about how much the business side of, our subculture has changed, because it really has. Like, I can remember where everything used to be more like a hustle. And if you knew somebody that knew somebody and you had $1,000, you could get just about any headliner you wanted. But, instead, like now, like, there's pros and cons, but now it's truly a business. So it's, and Tony's really savvy with that side of the business. Speaking of Tony, I can't go without saying without mentioning Passionate DJ. David and Tony and Mo, like you said, there's been times where we disagree on things, and as four guys in a room, we're not always going to agree on everything. And the podcast has truly been a labor of love for us, and we've gone through a pretty long journey together. And so I truly do thank David for bringing all of us into that fold, because that sense of community, there really isn't anything more satisfying than those messages coming from people across the world that you don't know, that are like, hey, thank you for everything that you're doing. So Collective Intelligence, Walt Smith, that's who I'm going to see in Phoenix. So just a shout out for him too, because the Collective Intelligence arsenal, that crew, they've been around since the early 90s, and now it is a network that stretches across the United States. So there's literally little chapters all over the place. And so it's, a couple decades later, it's really cool to still see, that logo flying around. Outside of that, it's, man, my whole producer crew. Like, I mean, as a producer yourself, I'm sure you know what I'm about to say, but it's one thing when you're first starting out and you're literally putting out every like loop or whip that you've got, and you're putting everything out there, and you're starving. You're like, come on, somebody give me some feedback. What do you think? And over time, that circle really starts to, narrow until you get to a very short amount of people, that, if you put something out there, you're going to get honest, true feedback. And that is what helps get you, make you better. So for me, those people are like, your DJ Odie, Firecat 451, Mr. Shifter, Nick Moore, Low Freak, Evil L, Crystal Grid, a trio of guys that I worked with in a professional studio setting, Leo Shea and Micaiah, Tony and David, and another shout out for Lauren at Bass Industry Records, because he was the first one to really take a chance on me and my music and released it. So I'm sure there's a ton more people that, I could sit here and just, chat your ear off and name names for hours, but those are my people for sure.
I love that. I love that you have your peeps. I feel like it's so important to not only build community, but have like your village, your crew of people that, you just like, accountability buddies and can help one another out. So to end off this awesome interview, I would love to hear about all of the amazing things that you're super excited about, maybe some upcoming events or mixes or podcasts that you want everybody to go check out or stay tuned for.
So honestly, right now, things are a little quiet. No, I just mentioned I'm doing direct support for DJ Icy here in a couple of weeks in Cincinnati. Aside from that, things are a little quiet, but that's been mostly due to my life situation at the moment. So, I've just been kind of in a mode where like been focusing a lot on family and work, and I'm wrapping up a degree. So, I just, with between work, school, kids, it's just, that's been an all consuming thing. But the good news is that as some of these other things are waning off, then I've got a lot more time. So I've actually started writing again. So my goal is to keep writing through the spring and summer, and then hopefully start shopping some tracks around in the fall. Yeah, I mean, anybody can always check me out at tripturlington.com. I'm on Spotify. I've got a SoundCloud out there. The SoundCloud has some like bootlegs, remixes, and unreleased stuff that isn't on Spotify. But I'm not as active on social media as I should be. I don't even have like artist pages. Like this is how not to get noticed as a DJ. I think that's one of our episodes. But I should probably do something about that. But yeah, I mean, I'm still out there. I mean, I'm not hard to find for sure.
Yeah. Well, just like hearing what you're saying right now, I know there have been times in my life where there's that lull, and that's where I get all my writing done. And then you get so busy with DJ gigs, and you're like, I have not been in the studio for a while. I need to make a new mix. Like, man, there are so many different types of DJs out there. The wedding DJs, these mobile DJs, corporate, the club DJs. And like when the bookings are good, they're amazing. But there's like, man, there's only so much time in your day. So having those lulls are actually kind of helpful. I only have one gig this weekend, and I'm like, holiday.
right. If I had the chance to be in that kind of a position again in life, where like I have to choose between this professional, like, IT corporate career that I've built versus, being able to be that gigging, DJ, and be traveling and doing all that stuff again. I think I would really love to have this opportunity again, because I would do so many things differently. But, it's just, I am incredibly happy to be in that spot where, I'm not chasing every little gig, because we live in a small town, and in Ohio, like Cincinnati, Dayton, and Columbus are all kind of pretty close together. Indianapolis and Pittsburgh aren't far off either. Chicago's only like a 5-hour drive for us. So, and Detroit's only a few hours too. So like, I'm at a point in life where I don't have to take every little weekday gig, but I've still got the connections where I get asked to come and play in Chicago a couple times a year, or I get this, or I get, and get to play these. So I get to be selective still. And I love that.
Yes, that's a pretty sweet place to be.
Yeah.
Trip, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Kilma, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
For the rest of you that are tuned into the episode, was there something that he said that really stood out to you? Maybe some insight or piece of information that you're like, you know what? I'm going to go out. I'm going to apply that today. Let us know in the comments below how you're going to apply that to your life. And as always, make sure you don't let no one kill your vibes.